So we'll do a quick agenda here. We'll do some welcomes and some introductions, talk a little bit about SingleKey, and then we're going to get right into this deep dive session, talking about fake PDFs and screenshots, fake service animal documentation, and of course, fake Interac confirmation emails. And we'll dig into what the examples look like, how to identify them, and then we'll provide you some concrete tips that you guys can use that are very easy to action to help avoid these types of fraudulent documents. So we'll go through the team here. I'll let each of our panel kind of introduce themselves. I'm really excited for this. So Don, I've got you first left on the screen. How about you go first and give a quick background on who you are?
Oh, thank you very much. Excited to be here, that's for sure. Edmonton Eviction Services, we started about 10 and a half years ago. We help landlords throughout the province with navigating the problems with tenants and all that sort of thing, utilizing the RTDRS in Alberta.
Perfect. We've got Logan. How about you give yourself a quick introduction as well?
Hi everyone. I'm Logan. I'm a business development associate at SingleKey. I've actually been working here for over 2.5 years now. I actually started off in customer service, so I spoke and helped with a lot of landlords daily and learned a lot of tips and tricks that I'm really excited to share with you guys today.
Yeah, and Logan's going to cover the tips around looking at fake digital documents, so PDFs, screenshots. We've crossed over 120,000 landlords now here at SingleKey. And in that journey, we've certainly seen our fair share of fake documents, IDs. As we do ID, every landlord that uses our platform does go through a verification process. And Logan's been pretty integral to that process as we have streamlined it and minimized risk on the fraud side. So she has some great examples that she can share with us as well, which I'm really excited about. And then lastly, my name is Mackenzie Wilson. I am one of the directors here at SingleKey. Basically, I am a self-proclaimed landlord nerd, anything and everything about the industry. I love it. I also run the largest Facebook group in Alberta called the Alberta Landlord Community, as I also sit on a few of the education committees and we're service members, a part of the Calgary Residential Rental Association. There's ARLA, the Alberta Landlord Rental Association, and then the Saskatchewan Landlord Association. So I've made my business to really understand this industry and quite passionate about it. I think it's a great business to be in. And if you do it right, it's quite rewarding as well. You've got other people calling your rental their home. So let's get into it. Okay, we'll just quickly go over SingleKey. As I mentioned, we've crossed over 120,000 landlords. We're really an online toolbox for do-it-yourself landlords right up to the big property managers. We have three major core offerings. We do a very comprehensive digital application with a report. And in that report, you get all the same credit information that banks would have. In addition to that, we do rent collection. So the same way you'd collect rent from, say, pre-authorized debit, the way you pay a utility bill out of a checking account, we allow that to do that for rent, and you can automate that process so you don't have to have tenants remember to collect rent. And then lastly, we have a rent guarantee product, which definitely is very complementary to what we're talking about today, and avoiding dealing with fraudulent documents. We basically guarantee rent, and it does quite well in Ontario and BC, where the legislation is certainly a lot more challenging in those environments.
So I'm just going to go through some examples of some fake documents that we've received or have found, and show you guys some tips and tricks on what to look for when you receive documents directly from tenants and the importance of looking over everything. So in the first example, it's just the payment history for one of the accounts on a credit report. Just straight off looking at it, you can notice that there are two different fonts being used. You wouldn't see this on a table like this on a real Equifax credit report. And you can also notice that there's spacing inconsistencies. So I find that tables tend to give you the dead giveaway for when a document has been edited. So you can see that the payment there, the 24,000, it's not in the middle of the two lines. And then another thing is that there is missing information. So if you actually look close enough, you can see that it was actually painted over in white in most of the cases and just reprinted over with a new similar font. So that's just something that whenever you see a table, really look into it just browsing over this, you might just think that it's okay, but the closer you look, the more you'll find. And then for the next example, so since Equifax reports tend to be pretty long, about 24 pages, there's a lot that applicants would need to edit. And what I've noticed is that this page, the account summary, tends to be forgotten in a lot of cases. In this example, you can see that the Equifax logo at the top is really low resolution. That doesn't look right. Another thing is that there's a lot of inconsistencies in font and color and bolding. So if you're not used to looking at credit reports, you probably wouldn't notice. But what I've seen is that the numbers beside the account type should actually also be bolded as well. And in this example, it is not. And just going back to like forgetting to edit is that usually applicants will actually forget to edit the amount of a revolving. So let's say in this one, it shows revolving has one account and then installments has one. But when you scroll down, there's actually an open account included as well, or two revolvings. And we've seen that the other way as well, where there would be five revolving accounts, but when you scroll down, there's only one revolving showing. So that's just proof that the applicant actually deleted pages of their bad accounts, trying to hide that information. And then this example, so it's pretty clear that this applicant either traveled back to the future, is a huge Back to the Future fan, or simply made a typo, meaning to put January but put October instead. So there are a lot of dates present on Equifax reports. It's so important to keep an eye out for mistakes because a lot of times looking at them, I can easily tell like that doesn't add up. And in this case, it was just very obvious. It's way too in the future to be on a report right now. Equifax would not make this mistake.
Mhm.
So that's just something to really keep an eye on.
Yeah, and Logan, as you went through all these different examples, like how are you able to tell that where you started seeing these formatting issues? You had a really kind of good strategy that you're using.
Yeah. So we had a customer actually run a credit report and came to us saying, "Hey, your report doesn't look anything like what the tenant gave us." And she actually ended up sending us the credit report that the tenant gave. And luckily, early that week, I actually ran my own Equifax report. So I kind of put them side by side and went through it. And doing that just makes it so easy to see all these inconsistencies, how it should look, versus these little modifications that otherwise you wouldn't really notice.
Yeah.
So it's always really important, if possible, to have a legitimate copy beside when you're reviewing.
Perfect. Yeah, and you'll notice this will be a running theme through our show, and perhaps we're giving away some of the thunder, but really your major defense against a lot of these forged and fraudulent documents is verifying this information from a credited source, from a trustworthy source. So whether that be through SingleKey as your credit checking provider, or if you use someone else, we hope you use us, or going directly, say, to a business to verify, say, perhaps some pay stub information. Well, it will be kind of the ongoing theme here. There's a few other checks that we'll share as well, but that's definitely an important takeaway. One thing I think I forgot to mention also on housekeeping, please ask questions at any time throughout the webinar. We'll mark it with a thumbs up once it's been captured, and then at the end we'll do a live Q&A, and we'll take all your questions and make sure we have them answered for you.
So fake driver's licenses have actually improved a lot in the recent times, which is a little scary and unfortunate, but there are a lot of tips to what to look for exactly. Security features do vary based off province. So one key tip is if an applicant is in your province, what I like to do, I like to whip out my own driver's license and just compare right away, seeing a live version. If it is an out of province applicant, quick tip is just Google, BC driver's license and just look for the security features there as well. So I'll just go through a few of the Ontario and then Alberta and BC. So for Ontario, one of the key security features is that the fine line blue crosses should actually be overlapping the ears, chin, and a bit of the forehead. And in this case, the fake driver's license does not have it. It's just a face printed over top of it. And same thing with the flower. So the flower here, it just looks like solid pink or purple, but you should actually slightly see the crosses behind it as well. And then at the bottom, the secondary photo should actually have like a protective film and raised. And in this case, you can't even see any reflective there. And then on your driver's license, it also should be micro and rainbow printed. So when you kind of move it, it's very kind of thin, but the colors blend very well. Like it's very hard to replicate. So that's
Yeah.
a huge one with all the driver's licenses.
Okay. I think the one thing you'd mentioned to Logan, a good tip along these things was where you
Mhm.
were saying to compare, like, I mean, it's great with our documentation process or our reports is you can have the identification as part of your report, but it's good to have the records. But you're saying to actually physically check and see the license, perhaps at the time that you're in your lease signing or the move-in when they're doing the move-in report, and actually compare and contrast because what we see in these pictures, you're saying, Logan, is might not be what you can pick up by physically touching and handling the ID.
Exactly, because like same thing with this one, the dinosaur should actually be in raised, and on a photo, it's really hard to tell. You have no way. Same with like the transparent windows, like it's not easy to really tell when you're just getting a picture. So always try and see if you can get an actual copy. When you're doing like the show-ins, just ask if you can just see the card to write down like the information and yeah. And same thing with this one, it's just like those small little details where you can easily tell the color's usually really off. There's no signatures, the blending in the photos, and the alignment. So you see the issued and the date is actually a little below where it is that you won't see that on your driver's license. There's just little things like that to keep an eye out. And then fake pay stubs, proof of income, that's another really common thing that landlords tend to receive. People can get them from online pay stub generators or manually editing their pay stubs as well, or copying a partner's pay stub as their own. So just copying the format and changing it. And if you go on Reddit, there's a lot of people that ask for help with editing pay stubs. So it's really something that you really need to keep an eye out for. And what to look for is incorrect math, whole numbers, which are really unlikely after taxes. Some cases they use O's instead of zeros, and then inconsistencies with the formatting, the alignment, and fonts. And then it's so important to make sure you verify your proof of income. So instead of calling the number that the applicant gives you with the application, Google the website or call the number off Google or on the website and get at least two of the most recent pay stubs so you can kind of go back and forth and see if the formatting is the same and the alignment and the fonts.
And something to keep in mind too, there are unfortunately some pay stub generators out there that do the math really, really well. So again, like Logan said, if you're unsure, really this is why it's so important to do that reference check or employer check and call to verify some of the information.
Exactly. And then this is like the pro tip of the year for us here. So it's checking the file properties. So with PDFs, you're able to inspect the document and go to the general info. And here you'll be able to see the author of the document. This should never be the applicant's name, should never be anyone else's name for that matter, if it's the original document, right? And the content creator application, this is the application that originally created the document. In this example, it's Canva, which is a graphic design application, which obviously shows that it was edited and changed. Um, and then the PDF producer is what the software used to convert the document to a PDF. So this is usually built into the application. So when you download a report from SingleKey, that's would be our PDF producer. And again, this example shows I love PDF. If you're getting an Equifax credit report, it downloads directly as a PDF. There's no need to use Canva or
Hmm.
I love PDF. And then more importantly, the creation and modification dates. The creation date for credit reports should be the date that you ordered the report. And then if there is a modification date, it should be at the exact same as the creation date or not be there at all. It should not be after, um,
Yeah, those
as
are
it should.
great tips, Logan. I love that. And I think probably just to kind of highlight with the PDF producer and the content creator, if you're downloading it directly from Equifax or SingleKey, you would want to expect a similar corporate name there. That instead of some of this like what Logan highlighted, these random PDF editing softwares or Canva and so on. So good information.
And just wrapping back up to the PDFs, they're always preferred over screenshots as screenshots are easily modified. There's no metadata to even review. And then it's so easy to crop it to kind of paint a different picture and lose the contents. And PDFs are not as easily as modified and can also be encrypted. And most cases, when you download original document, your pay stub or credit report, it does come in a PDF anyway, so there's no need to get a screenshot.
Yeah, that's so true. For example, too, like when I download my bank statements from Bank of Montreal, I can't actually open up and edit the PDF. There's actually encryption that the banks put into it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's still some softwares out there that will allow people to edit PDFs, but well, there's a higher effort level that individual has to go through to jump through that hoop to do it. So if you try to make sure you get your documentation in PDF format, you have a little bit higher level of protection and hopefully a little bit lesser chance of coming across that fraudulent documentation.
Yeah, and this
And
is just a sneak peek of like our up and coming product. So Mac, if you want to take this away, go ahead.
yeah, for sure. So we've got a pipeline of new functionality and features we're always putting into our reporting, and to basically that journey you go through from the first inquiry from a prospective tenant to sign their name on the lease. So today we allow you to collect all this documentation, but we currently just present it to you, meaning it's still your responsibility to do the due diligence. We're working with a provider that we will hopefully don't have a date or timeline on that a little bit later this year where it will actually provide some analysis on that documentation. But really, at the end of the day, an important takeaway is we're always kind of following that saying, trust but verify. Ultimately, it is your responsibility as the homeowner, property manager, to verify the documentation. We'll just try to give you better tools and more information to make that decision as accurate as possible.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so just a quick summary of fake document tips. Always check the document properties for PDFs, very important. You can tell right away when it's been edited that way. And always look at the entire document for the inconsistencies and missing information. It's so easy to skip over if you're only looking at the credit score. And try and always get PDFs directly from the source. So if they're downloading it directly from Equifax, it should look just like your own Equifax PDF. And then again, get the information directly from a trusted source instead of relying on the tenants to give you the information. Just like we offer at SingleKey, our credit reports come directly from Equifax and now TransUnion. So we do not modify, edit any of this data. It comes directly from their file with the credit bureau. So you know you're getting the real thing when you run it through us.
All right, awesome. Mr. Don Gray, the floor is yours.
Okay, service guide dog accreditation. This is something that has been more and more often. I'm running into this in my business, where people are trying to have their pet as a service animal, pygmy goats and all kinds of things. That in Alberta and BC, it's just dogs that are accredited and they need to be certified. Here's an example of a company that you can buy a registration and identification and all that kind of stuff. You can buy a package, and it was like $60 or something. You can get one.
Yeah, there was a plethora. Hey, when we were doing our research, Don, there was just a ton of different examples, and
Oh, yeah.
we included two or three. But There's literally dozens. I mean, for example, here, this one says, this is kind of interesting. They have operating hours from 2 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. Well, that's kind of odd. If you go and click on their contact, they happen to be in a lovely state of Hawaii. So, hey, but they're, providing Canadian cross Canada certification. So then
You should put a
couple,
hula around that dog.
yeah, a couple others. So here's Amazon right now.
Mhm.
You can get a card, click on customize now, dog's name, handler. Another one here too. Again, it's showing Canadian service dog. And really, Don will get into this. Like what's really the thing here is really knowledge. And then again, another one. There's tons and tons and tons.
Yep. Yeah, it's it was fun going through that. Some examples there. We got this Canadian one. If you get down further, they got packages you can buy. You can, if you just want to fly, or if you want to be able to get into some kind of accommodation. Maybe the next slide.
Yeah. Well, the big key here. Oh, sorry, I should have clicked on that. Don is worth in is there is no Canadian federal legislation, right? So if someone's offering
no federal, no.
Yeah, anything related to federal, that's your first red flag that it's fraudulent. There's just that legislation doesn't exist in Canada. The federal government tried to push through a change in 2018, and the Canadian General Standards Board end up choosing not to do it. So your defense is knowing your provincial legislation. This is where this is governed at. So
if you look in the red box there in the middle there, it says fact, each province has its own policies. So they got some truth in there. What they're going under here is Canada Health Act to have a dog for your PSD or whatever. But it does mention there that Alberta has a Service Animals Act, and British Columbia the Guide Animal Act. So the rest of the world or rest of Canada is different. So yeah, under the Service Dog Act, if you have a certified guide dog, and that's usually that's to do with the Blind Persons Act as well, and they go and coincide. So if you actually have a certified service dog, you can't deny, nobody can deny you that occupancy of a self-contained dwelling unit or discriminate against any determined condition of the self. So you can't say you can't have the dog is basically it. For the reason a person is a blind person keeping or customary accompanied by a guide dog.
Yeah. It basically kind of add to what you're saying there, Don, right? So you have to rent them. You can't deny them. You can't use the no pet policy. And at the same thing, Section 3 here is basically saying they're not entitled to any additional rights. They're entitled to basically the same rights as someone who doesn't have a service dog would have. Nothing more, nothing less. What's interesting here on the Alberta one at the bottom is this legislation does not apply if the dog is not under control or the behavior of the dog is not appropriate. So that's really interesting, and that's unique to Alberta.
Yeah, well, they have to pass the test. They have to come from an accredited, listed, and then they have to pass a test before they can be certified. And part of that test is that the dog has the right temperament. It's not going to have an anger problem. So we got here BC legislation is very close to the same.
Basically the same, the first two sections. I think the last one is they have an interesting section that no one else has, Section 3 there, Don, where if there's shared accommodations or facilities.
Yeah, and then so then but this doesn't apply if they live in a shared unit where you're sharing a bathroom, kitchen, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And so if you're renting out a room in your house and you are sharing the bathroom, kitchen, your living room, then you actually have a right to deny a service animal, which I found interesting, surprising when we're doing our research.
Yeah.
Yeah, and BC or Alberta, surprisingly, not surprisingly, first came out the legislation that the specific Guide Dog Act. BC shortly followed after, and then actually they've standardized across Nova Scotia as well. So if you have IDs from 3 of those provinces, and we'll show you what those samples look like as well, then they're actually legitimate.
No legislation in Ontario. They have a mention, one of their acts, but nothing that Alberta or BC has.
Yeah, I'll share a screen here. So this is, if you guys want to use the QR code just to kind of follow along for you, if this applies to you in Ontario. Accessibility in Ontario, what you need to know, and then you can click down to guide and service dogs. Basically, obviously the same access or accommodations do apply, but they do not have to wear a vest or a harness. There's no governing legislation specific to the guide dogs and what is required. Unfortunately, if you're in Ontario, you have a bit of an uphill battle. You could receive letters from doctors, nurses, psychologists, whatever, stating that this individual needs it. And then they're using this definition for the service dog. And then there's something else here. Oh yeah, here's the last part that's kind of important is, which makes it challenging, again, if you're in Ontario, is there is no certification, and they don't need to have certification cards. Now saying that, and here's what kind of Don was alluding to, Don, is there is something called a Blind Persons Act here in Ontario. Actually, there's a similar act in most provinces that kind of defines those similar rights. But where you guys are kind of left stranded is there's no, again, certification standard or accreditation for you guys to look to unfortunately verify the authenticity of a service dog in your province. Yeah.
Business owners have a duty to accommodate up to a point of undue hardship. So if an example that I've run across is, if you have somebody coming in your building that's in a wheelchair, for example, and you have some steps, duty to accommodate would include putting a ramp over those steps, but you wouldn't be forced to put in an elevator.
Yeah.
That'd be undue hardship. You can't deny, if it's a bona fide service dog or guide dog, that's the same thing in Alberta. You can't deny him the entry into your business, and you can confirm certification, accreditation. Some of the other provinces say you can't even ask, so you just have to assume that if they got a guide dog, that it's certified.
Awesome. Yeah, and just specific to our situation, being landlords and property managers and homeowners, is if someone shows up to your viewing with a service dog and there's an obvious need, you can't deny and you can't even ask for release certification at that point. You need to permit and let them in. However, going back to that point of undue hardship, or if you've got, especially if it's like a suite property and you've got other renters, and say if there's allergies and other things at play, you do have the right, when you're going to go sign a lease, then to validate the authenticity or the accreditation of that service dog. And that's kind of different. We kind of wanted to highlight here for you, and that's an important takeaway.
Yeah, but they still have to meet the rest of your criteria. They have to make enough money and all that kind of stuff to be able to pay the rent.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Don. Absolutely. So let's look at some examples here.
Yes.
Got lots here. So
yeah.
So we've got, I didn't include the Nova Scotia one. Well, that's okay. So we've got, BC's got a actual card certification program that the individual can apply for, which is great. Alberta's got that too. There seems to be kind of 2 different versions here, so that's why I include them both. But and then so does Nova Scotia, and we can share some links too. So here's the Service Alberta website. Approved service dog organizations, and they'll tell you all the exact organizations that are accredited that can only do this in Alberta. And BC's the same, and so is Nova Scotia. And the reason I keep bringing up Nova Scotia is these 3 have used the same accreditation standardization process. So whether the certification is done in BC, Nova Scotia, or Alberta, they're using the same standard, which is great. It's great to see that. The one thing down in the middle there, we've got what is this guy? I can't remember now. The Ministry of the Attorney General. So I don't know how applicable this is. This goes back to that Blind Persons Act in Ontario. There's some people that can go through and apply for this card through the Attorney General's office. I don't expect it to be super common. So just really something to be aware of.
Yeah. In my mind, that's a fake. For our purposes in Alberta, that's a fake. It's not accredited as it is for BC. It doesn't meet standards.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
But these other ones are there. So the takeaway from that is, if it's a service dog, they're a blind person, have trouble seeing, then it's a good chance that that's an accredited dog. But if it's emotional support, that's a pet. That's not accredited, and you don't have to have a duty to accommodate them.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. So I'm going to show you two examples, a not very good low quality one, and I'll show you a really high quality one that would be very difficult to detect. But there is a really simple solution to actually mitigate all this, and we'll show that here right away. So a couple different things is obviously the spelling is wrong. In this sample, it's lowercase j, landlord spelled wrong. You'll notice the coloring, they've photoshopped on top of it. You've got unnecessary space here. And then they kind of dropped over. Like this is pretty straightforward and obvious. Next one, so yeah, here we go. One thing to note, if you notice on e-transfers, this is just kind of an observation I've seen over time, is I think when Interac first came out with these, they defaulted to just using the legal name on the bank account. And that's why you'll see, it's not as common now, but when they first came out, you would see the name of the person sending or receiving the Interac e-transfer all in capital letters. And I think that was just kind of how they formatted and standardized it. But now it's a lot more easy, and most banks allow you to go in and edit, and you can put any display name you want on your e-transfer. So if you do see a fully capital letters, it might be an indication that a higher chance that you're getting, you're seeing accurate information, which is a good sign. But definitely if it's lowercase or if it's something else, then you've known the person on the other side sending the e-transfer has changed their name. So something to be aware of. Down here, number 6.2, what we're missing here is there should be a reference or a confirmation number. Okay, so now I'll show you a high quality fake. So this is a fake one I've done up, and it's very difficult to tell. All the formatting is the same. I did obviously change the names here just for demonstration purposes, but the rest of it is pretty much bang on. And I'll show you how easy it is to do this. There is one thing here that I didn't change or I made a mistake on, and it's down here on the very bottom in the fine print. The bank account that the Interac e-transfer sender uses will be displayed here. So the legal name for TD Bank is actually TD Canada Trust. So you'd have to be kind of familiar with the legal names of the banks, and that's what we'll display down here. And that's also kind of a pro tip, because then you know what bank they're using as well. So if you're doing your tenant screening, and they have sent, say, some not pay stubs, but let's say they decide to share with you bank statements, and they've also provided some e-transfers because you're trying to validate the rent being paid. You can then kind of cross-reference. Hopefully, the bank statements are at the same bank as what's stated down here on the e-transfer. So let's go into the next one. So here's kind of the highlights of what I've changed. So in this case, the date's been changed, the amount's been changed. It went from being paying on time to now it's actually paid in the middle of the month. There's your confirmation number, all that stuff's back. And then here's the full legal name for the bank, TD Canada Trust. But I'm going to actually do a video for you guys, because I'll show you how easy it is to fake this. And it's going to be kind of like, it's just good. It's good to be aware of it. So this is John's the tenant. He's going to change this to send a fake e-transfer to Jane, landlord. So Mike, best friend, is now going to be from John. That's going to be from John, tenant. So now we're going to say Jane, landlord. It's going to be jane.landlord@gmail.com. Boom. That's changed now. Hi, Jane, landlord. from John Tenant. You know, he sent rent for, let's show he can afford a lot. So he's paying, last month's rent was paying, I don't know, let's say 26.50. There you go. Oh, let's put a comma in there, keep it consistent. He's going to change the message now. It's going to be rent for January. Thank you, Jane, landlord. You're the best. Add a little bit of emotional play in there. Why not? But you know what? I also want them to know what bank I'm using. So I'm going to go, I am now at, I don't know, CIBC, for example. Now, last thing, let's take a look here and change is, oh, I paid my rent late. Don't want to do that. So let me just make sure I go, oh, you know what? That was good. Paid it December 27th. Why not? A little bit long there, but it did take me quite a while to do this. So a bit of a context is if you're going through and you're validating or doing your due diligence on a prospective tenant, you're looking at their credit score and all the information along, and you know, it's not great, it's not bad either. And then this would be definitely a good time then to get additional documentation to validate they've paid rent on time. I still would recommend, say, in using Interac e-transfer confirmation emails. But what you do want to be asking for is at least at a minimum of 6 months, ideally get 1 year or 12 months worth of email confirmations. When I was going through and building this documentation out, it took me quite a while. I kept forgetting small things. I didn't change the subject when I was trying to get my example just right. So it would take a lot of effort for someone to go through and do a full 12 months worth and hopefully not make a mistake. So to your advantage, would be asking for more. And plus, with most people being honest, you do get a lot of really good information out of the Interact email confirmations. You get when the rent was paid, who was paid to, and how, of course, how much the rent was paid. And then that should be a ton of information that you can cross-reference when you do your due diligence. Here's the big pro tip I'm really excited for is a common theme going back again is you got to verify these emails directly from the source. And they come with this lovely thing here. It says view in browser. You need to be clicking on this link, and that will redirect you to the original email directly from Interac. So here's the example right here. This is the most important thing right here. This exact beginning of this URL has to start with exactly what I've got highlighted in blue here, which is https://etransfer.interact.ca. The rest of it after that, you don't need to worry about. That's going to be different and unique to every Interac e-transfer. And so the one that you're seeing here right now is actually one of mine. This is one of my tenants that's paid rent. So that's why I've blurred out some of their information. But this is your bulletproof way to ensure authenticity of the Interac e-transfer. I was hoping to do a live demo. So something that we've done, and we put a lot of time in this at SingleKey, is I'll try to do it on camera because I couldn't get my iPad to unfortunately join. But what I've got here is I've got two of our new reports, and then one's been faked, which is obviously I've written in pen there, and one's real. And the fake one's got really great credit scores, no outstanding debts, all that good stuff. But we have this little QR code in the top corner. What we're going to be offering very soon here is the ability for tenants to purchase their own credit reports and then present them to you when you're at the viewing. Now, you're going to go, Mackenzie, you just told me not to accept anything directly from the tenant and go to a trusted source. That's correct. But what we've done here is this QR code you can scan with a, what will happen when you scan the QR code is it's going to take you to a screen that asks you either to log in with your SingleKey account or create a new one. And then it will add that credit report for free to your account as a landlord. So all of a sudden now you've got the report directly from a trusted source, which is us. So then you can look at all the information that you know is real. So that's the very important part. And then the other kind of nice segue too, from a tenant's perspective, is they come really organized and well prepared to viewing. It looks good in your eyes because they know what you're looking for, and they'll provide you a credit check right at the very beginning. Speeds up the process. They also protects their credit score because now they're not getting a bunch of credit hits or inquiries on the credit score and potentially lowering it. And then also there's no cost to you because the tenant's already paid for the credit report. So kind of a really cool system that we'll be releasing here pretty soon. And yeah, great. We're right at the end here. I know we're almost at full time. We have so many questions, so we're going to try knocking these out quickly. Again, this is that URL is super, super, super important. So let's get into some Q&A, and let's see if we can kind of do this rapid fire. If you guys want, we still have quite a large number of people watching, well over 100. So if it's okay with you, Don and Logan, maybe stay a little bit longer and make sure we can help answer people's questions. Okay, great. Okay. Do you often see fake credit reports when a prospective tenant offers to provide you with their documents? Can you decline and inform them that you prefer that we prefer to do a new report? I suppose if they don't give us their approval, that's immediate red flag. Run away fast. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's a cat in the background. Love it. Yeah, you should have like a pro tip here is you have a defined process on how you screen tenants, and you don't change that, and you have to, and you need to stick to that. So you can go, thanks, Mr. or Mrs. Tenant. I really appreciate you providing me the screenshot on your phone of their Credit Karma, whatever credit score they have. But our best practice is we use SingleKey or your other credit card provider, and it's quick and easy, and we get directly from the source just because we've had issues in the past. And that's basically what you do. And like you said, if they push back on it, you've already kind of described it. It's a red flag, and you want to move on. Okay, yeah, we kind of did answer this. Right now, the way our reports do work is it is all manual check-in. And this is where and I guess another tip too, we didn't really jump into, when you're looking at the documentation, zoom in like a crazy amount. So you're really looking at where the document's almost pixelating. And that will actually really easily identify if they've photoshopped or, they've placed images on top of the document. As of today, our reports don't do any analysis. We simply provide you the information for your own due diligence. That is a feature, as we just shared earlier on in the presentation, that we're coming up to. Okay, will SingleKey be responsible for validating the potential tenant's documents, whether forged or not, if we undertake the rent guarantee program services? If the supporting rental documents are found to be forged later, will SingleKey still honor the demand payment obligation for such a tenant if approved by SingleKey in the first place? And maybe Logan, do you want to take this? I have the take,
Yeah,
but yeah, go with it.
yeah. So our rent guarantee team, we do try and do our best to review and verify the documents. We do call the employment references. We do all the checks we can. We have caught quite a bit of fake reports. There's always a chance that they can slip through. We do have a clause written in our agreement that it is the landlord's responsibility to make sure that the documents are legit. We just try our best to really help out with that. And hopefully, when we do have that new tool to check the verification, this will be a lot more easier and more secure way, and definitely reduce the risk of later finding out. But our team is always more than happy to walk you through the whole path of helping you verify these documents with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And to add on to what Logan said, the way the rent guarantee works, it's kind of like car or house insurance. Again, it's the responsibility of the homeowner to ensure that the furnace is up to date, the house is in good working condition. Also, you have a chance of where you may have void your home insurance if it's not properly looked after. That's the same kind of responsibility here. But really, the quick and easy way to avoid all of this is getting that report again directly from a trusted source, whether it be directly from us or another provider. Does the identity verification category on SingleKey catch fake driver's licenses? So today, right now, is just a straight upload. We don't do any analysis on it. So no, that due diligence again is your responsibility. We are bringing in a new service that will do ID verification, where it will have the individual upload a selfie and upload again their government issued ID. We'll run an algorithm and do like a facial comparison and give you like a confidence score if we believe this person is in fact that person in the driver's license. I don't know if it targets fake driver's licenses. Logan, can you answer that question?
Yes, so we are testing it out, and it does catch up on a lot of them. So that is a good thing. So it will be very useful. We don't really see too many with tenants with the fake ID, so I wouldn't worry too much about this. It is more of one-offs and easy to catch when you do see them, seeing as the example. So it's just making sure that you take that time to just Google the security features on IDs and just educate yourself on what to look for.
We're kind of showing the tip of the iceberg of the worst cases here. It's in theme with March being Fraud Awareness Month, but yeah, it's not going to be super common. Maybe that might change a bit here because we're in a high demand environment really across the country. I mean, for the individuals or the landlords out in Ontario, this is really nothing new for you guys over the last couple of years. And if people are in a tough place and they're trying to find accommodations for themselves or their family, that temptation to perhaps smudge the truth a bit is a lot higher. And that's also something you got to take in consideration. But honestly, the vast majority of people are honest, and you just got to ensure that, do your regular due diligence, that they can pay rent and all those checks and balances are meeting the standards that you're looking for. So when you verify income with my applicants, I'm a client of yours. What exactly have you done to verify the information is correct and current? So similar to what Logan just said, we'll call the employers directly. We should also on the Equifax, and actually now we actually have a dual report that just got launched like 2 weeks ago. So we can do both Equifax and TransUnion. They have a little bit different sets of databases, which was kind of interesting. But that's a whole other conversation. But you'll see they have a section called reported employment. It's not perfect, but it's another place to check if that reported employer is the same one the tenant's providing you on the application. And at the end of the day, that's where that employer check's really important to do, to validate that person. Just, do they work at that company? Have they been there the time they've stated they've been there? Are they roughly making the amount they've told you they're making? And, is that position in line with what was provided to you? Can you please re-clarify the PDF create data modification date? Yeah, I've checked some of my PDFs and they have different ones. So I'll add something and I'll let Logan retake this back. The more times you copy a file or upload it to, say, a Google Drive and download it again, you're going to reset all of these parameters. So this is only applicable the first time it's given to you from the tenant. Because if you go and recreate a copy over here or upload it to Google Drive and then download it on your phone, all those numbers, all those data points get completely reset. They're called metadata. But why is that really important, Logan, that those have to match?
Yeah, so it's very important because you can basically see that it has been edited. And just to go back to what Mac was talking about, it's very important to get these through email and open them up on your browser. So you have an option with, I know with Chrome and probably every other one. You can set it so it opens up PDFs on browser, and then this will actually show you the original, the date created, all the metadata that the original document has. So sometimes if you download it and then open it up and not on your Chrome, it will reset that. So just always make sure you open it on browser first, and double check there. And it's very important. It gives you pretty much a dead giveaway that there has been a modification. The PDF date created doesn't match up to when the tenant ran the report. So it's just a really good tip to keep in mind.
Yeah, and really these data points should be used in correlation with the other data points we talked about, the author. If all that information is looking normal and perhaps the modified date is a bit off a bit, that's probably more likely that just the way you've copied or moved the files around on your computer system is why it's like that. But if you're seeing that there's a weird author and it's like it's Mrs. or
Word
Mrs. Tenant's
or
name
yeah.
and it's Canva or I love PDF, there's just something that doesn't look like a legitimate Equifax or SingleKey, then that's where, okay, now you've got a lot more data points pointing that, kind of giving you that overall red flag. It's how you look at all the information together is also what's important. What is the timeline to evict a tenant in Ontario? I think right now, from the day you guys file to the day of a hearing date, still around, I think it's come down a bit. Maybe it's maybe at 6 months, but between that 6 to
Around
8 months, if there's no mistakes
yeah.
made right now. For I'd say like rent arrears or damages, there's typical some exceptions, but yeah, that's it. Do you guys also cover South Okanagan region? I'm assuming that's with our credit report. We're Canada-wide, including Quebec. So yeah, we cover it. Lewis, if the person moves, hey, Lewis, good to see you. Thanks for joining in. If the person moves somewhere where there is no certification, do they have to certify here in Alberta and get a card, or because they came from somewhere else, they don't have to? Don, I see you nodding your head. Help me take the answer here.
Yes, certainly. If they're not certified in BC, Alberta, or Nova Scotia, then they'd have to be certified here. The dog would have to be certified here.
Yeah.
Pass the test.
No. So good question. Yeah, that comes back to you have to accept the service dog and the handler in the same condition you'd accept someone without having pets. So you can't treat them any differently, and this would be considered a discrimination if you charged a pet fee or something on a service dog. You can't do it.
This dog isn't a pet. It's a working animal. It's a team with the blind person.
Yeah. Next question. What is the reason for paying attention to the e-transfer emails? If you can go online to your online banking and see if the transfer actually. So Interac emails, we're talking about if you're looking at a brand new tenant who's applied on a vacancy on your rental ad, they've now sent in an application and you've done your credit score with SingleKey, and now you're doing your due diligence process. And let's say the credit score comes back, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. You're kind of like, I don't know. But perhaps they've made a good impression. You want to perhaps put a little extra effort in doing the screening and give them a chance. This is where you might ask for a history of the last 6 to 12 months of Interac email transfers. And now what you've got all these additional data points that you can then validate that they in fact are, again, telling you the truth. Have they paid their rent on time? Because you'll see all the timestamps on the emails. And this is why getting the actual emails forwarded to your email from their email is the way to go. That's the really the go-to, really the only way to accept these. If they're sending you screenshots, especially like what Logan brought up too, you're getting screenshots of documents that either should be an email or a PDF. Way less than ideal, and generally just ask for the original. If they can't provide it, there's your red flag that something's going on. So that's why you're asking for those emails. How do you make sure a fraudulent tenant is not attending this session? They're going to learn all these red flags and then improve. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is publicly available information, but that's why we're kind of talking about where you got to click on that link and download a copy of that Interac e-transfer email directly from Interac. No one can fake that. And that's why I was pointing to that URL. It's so important. That's why getting a credit score directly from SingleKey is very, very important. Your biggest, and this is that common theme again, way to mitigate risk here is cross-referencing information from a place of trust or a trusted third party or a trusted source. And then that gives you that confidence as you're doing your due diligence, whether this person is being truthful and honest with you, or perhaps maybe there's some deceit at play. And if everyone's aware that these are possible fraud techniques, well, then you now know to look for them, and you're going to expect higher expectations when you're doing your next tenant screening. Unrelated question to the discussion, but I hope you can help. Is there any restriction to sharing the SingleKey report with a tenant application if they pay the fee directly to SingleKey? I'm going to say no, because I think I forget which, the PIPA Act, the Personal Information and Privacy Act. If they make a formal request, make sure you get it in writing. You have to actually provide the information that was given to them. I guess the only flip side of that would pertain to the credit score. We do some analytics like rent to income ratio and some other stuff that they don't necessarily need to see, which you would be including that if you give them directly the report. When we launched the ability for tenants to purchase their own report, because we don't have some of the information, like we don't know what rent they're paying because we don't know where they're moving to yet, the report's going to look a little bit different and not have some of those metrics at the top. But you'll get really generally all the same information, especially from the credit score perspective, of either TransUnion or Equifax. What rights do you have if your tenant is subleasing without your knowledge? Yeah, we'll put a pin in that one. That will come back to another session. That would be considered a breach of your lease, and depending on your province, and depends what other factors at play. If you have a strong enough position to then go for an eviction, if that's what you want to do, there's a lot of depends in that answer. Yeah, so quite quickly, the rent guarantee program, we guarantee up to $60,000 of unpaid rent, $10,000 of damages, and that 60,000 is either paid in the first 12 months or up to the max of 60,000. We'll cover up to $1,500 of legal fees, which in most cases 95% covers all the legal fees and then some. And then we'll also assist you in the process. So we've got great providers like Don here in Alberta. He's an eviction expert, or you got paralegals in Ontario. We outsource that to the best people in the business, because at the same time that you're not getting paid your rent, well, now we're paying out on our policy and we're also losing money. So we're just as motivated as you to get that individual out. So that's kind of the gist of it. Oh, and the cost of the program is 5% of the monthly rent. One more question. Is your credit check so-called a soft or a hard check? Okay, this is a good question. It's actually really neither. There's a bit of a misconception between hard and soft, where a soft check doesn't affect the credit score and a hard one does. So our credit checks do show up as a local inquiry on the credit report. So that would be kind of the hard part. But because we're not financially checking for a $10,000 loan or a $20,000 car or a $5,000 credit card, there's no meat or there's no value to that check that we're doing. We have no dollar amount associated to it. So it's pretty meaningless. Like, it doesn't impact much because we're not checking you for a financial product. We're just pulling your credit score. So it's yes and no. Yes, it does show up, but because we have no financial check associated with our check, there's no risk there. Yeah, the impact is minimized, if any. What is the current percentage of fake documents you're discovering? Oh, okay. So let's put it this way. We're over 120,000 landlords, and we can count far less than in the hundreds if we've gotten that much now of fake documents. So if you do that as a percentage, let's call it, be over grateful to what's 1,000 divided by 120,000? We're not even 1%, not even close. And really, it's in a couple hundreds, I think. So next question. Do we offer landlord to board process support? If you're on our rent guarantee program, 100% we do. That's definitely part of the program. Will the recording of the session be available later on to view? Yeah, absolutely. This has all been recorded. We have a great follow-up email that we'll provide. Karen, our team, is going to be helping out with that. I'll sit down with her too and make sure we share some of the resources links that we've talked about today, because we packed a ton of information into this session for you. Does the landlord need to submit a rent guarantee application every year if the same tenant's renewing? No. So quickly, the rent guarantee application, once we get approved and they're in the system, they start on a 12-month commitment. After that, we mirror the same image. I mean, this is more applicable in BC and Ontario, where your guys' desire is to go into a month-to-month, where in Alberta, we like fixed terms. So then at that point, once it goes month-to-month, so does the rent guarantee program. And then at that point, you just need to do, I think, 1 month's notice to cancel it. Does SingleKey do anything with short-term rentals? You could, if you wanted to use our credit check. It would probably be seen as pretty aggressive or a little too much for short-term rental is. It's an option if you want to use it, but generally we're targeting to the long-term rentals. I think we're done. Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope we provided a ton of information, open your eyes to what's possible, and provide you really some concrete, easy to action tips. Some are even not very technical, like clicking on a link and reading the URL to really validate that information you're working with. Don, thanks so much for spending time. If people want to get a hold of you, if they've got eviction or tenant dispute related questions here in Alberta, what's the best way for them to find you?
Certainly through my website, edmontonevictionservices.com, Don at edmontonevictionservices.com. You send me an email or phone at 780-974-8427. Thank you.
Awesome. And Logan, thanks for hanging out, sharing some of the lessons learned on what we've seen. Really appreciate it. Awesome. It's been a team effort. We've had a few of our team members in the background. Karen is been busy in the background, so thank you, Karen. We hope you guys found this session valuable. It's our first deep dive session. Let us know in the feedback. We'll be sending up an email again with the recording, some resources, and a brief questionnaire. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. If there's something that was missing, we use your guys' feedback to then target next deep dive sessions to help educate you further. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.